Welcome back to another episode of Pushing Back Chaos with me, Paul Melon McFadden, joining you from sunny Middle East, where it's super hot in the middle of summer. I hope you guys are well. I hope you've been having productive weeks and that you've been finding some time to connect in your network and spend time with people you love. I've certainly been doing that, having a great time with family and friends, and yeah, it's been a good summer for me here in the Middle East. Joined here by my mate Mike. How you going, mate?
I'm fine, Melon. It's a little bit late here on the East Coast. It's almost 2 a.m., but it's a Saturday and it's okay. So I'm kind of a night owl. And if I'm being honest, it's nice to be home. I haven't been home in over a month consistently for like more than 2 days because I've just been on the road training so much, and from the desert down to the Gulf Coast and back and just all over, and I'm still going at it. And I was kind of telling my mom today, I was just like, yeah, it kind of feels like I'm a stranger in my own home sometimes, because I come home and I'm like, I don't even remember where I put this or put that, and I haven't had a lot of time to like put my place together how I wanted it. And it's just like I get to come home and just like sleep sometimes, which is nice. But yeah, not ideal, but I'm 3/4 of the way through this training and getting through, man. So it's I can see the light at the end of the tunnel a little bit. I'm looking forward to some breaks in the holidays and the fall time and Christmas time and everything else. Like, I'm really excited about spending some quality time and enjoying regular life. But yeah, it's not bad.
I know obviously just with respect for what you do, and we're never going to bring up details around it, but I just massive respect to you for what you do and the effort it takes to make that contribution to all of our safety and security, and the normal life in the West that we enjoy that can occur behind the safety that people like you across all of our allied countries provide. It's not easy to provide, and I really want to acknowledge you for what you do, and you still make the time to get together to have these conversations. 2 a.m. there, 9 a.m. here. We've been chatting for a little while before we started, getting up here on a Sunday morning, you staying up late on a Saturday evening, in and around your training commitments. It's great. It's massive. And there's like something to be said around like you unpacking your apartment and getting your home base set up as like a metaphor for life. But having things where you need them and having a place to come back to that's yours, and that supports you as you go out into life and your mission. There's something really beautiful about that, man. And it's nice. I know that I have those feelings every time I'm away and back at the air base when I come home, and just have to like Superman coming back to the Castle of Solitude or whatever it was called in the North Pole. Being able to recharge the batteries and be in your space, it's really good.
Yeah, I was hopeful when I got back from my last training trip and I came home, and then we had well, we'll get too specific, but I'll tell you that it really sucked. We went out on this.
I think with the idea that people have just a movie sort of idea about what someone in active duty, and certainly in your area of the world, does. I think people can picture that and be like, imagine actually doing it yourself and not being an actor. I think we can pretty much say all of it's difficult.
Let me just say, the recruiting commercials for like some of the really cool, sexy Hollywood stuff, that's like a whole 10 seconds. What they don't show you is the 6 hours it took to get to that point, and you're just miserable as hell, and you're just like, get me out of this gear, get me out of the ocean, get me out of this, get me out of that. God, we had this evolution the other night, where we were out in the ocean. We were predicting it was a long boat transit and then going inland doing a bunch of stuff, which I won't get into, but we were predicting it would take about 2.5 hours for the transit, and then another 3 hours or so for the transition in and transition back, and then doing this sort of thing. We stepped off around 6 p.m. and we got about, I don't know, it was about an hour into it, and we were hitting our timeline pretty good, and we're like, all right, this is good. A storm came in, and the storm didn't hit us directly, but the front did, so winds really picked up and everything. It was like 4-foot sea state out there, and the best way to try to describe it, which you're not going to see in any recruiting video or anything like that, which is fine. Turn off all the lights, see nothing but far distance lights, which there's no distance or reference to like to how far they are unless you have like a map and GPS. And basically close your eyes, put yourself in your washing machine, and then just ride in a direction for about 4.5 hours, getting the shit beat out of you by nothing but waves and salt water. And you're wet the entire time. Yeah, we predicted about 5 hours, 5.5 to complete all of this. Again, leaving at 6 p.m. We didn't finish until 3:30 in the morning. I didn't get in bed until 5:15 a.m. And that's just the level of training that we do, even in the worst of like conditions. And I sent this little thing that I kept. I actually made when I was an instructor, but it was us doing some things in the water column, and it just really sucked. And I sent it out to my guys, and there was a quote that went with it. It was really nice, that I really like. It says, I asked God why he was sending me through troubled waters. And he said, God replied, because my enemies can't swim. And I sent that out to my guys, and I said, you know what? Nobody in their right mind would go out and do the stuff that we just did last night. And that's why we did it. Because that's what we're paid to do, but that's who we are. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And we're going to come get you when you don't think we can make it, or, you could look at it and be like, the hell with that. And everybody just start making jokes, it's just like, and the funny stuff that happens in the dark, and the friends that you make, and all the goofy shit. I mean, there were some points, man, nobody was talking. It's just long drawn out, just getting your ass beat, and everybody's just holding on. And I just start laughing, at some points, like sporadically laughing. And guys are like, man, what are you laughing at? I was like, my whole career, every time it sucks every single time. And I was just laughing, and then I was like, we're not even moving. We're not even moving. Like, you see these far distance lights, and like you'd be driving in one for like 30 minutes and nothing moves. And you're like, we're not even moving, and everybody starts laughing. But it's what gets you through those shit times, man, but there was some times where it's like, hey, they were asking me, they're like, hey, should we turn back? Hey, should we cut the corner and maybe not hit our point and go a little bit quicker, or do this? And as much as I wanted to, like, trust me, I wanted to, because we were just getting, handed our lunch out there. I said no. I was like, no, we're hitting our point, man. We're going, because there's a lot of lessons learned that's going to come from this, not just from the training aspect, but just with life. This is supposed to suck. This is supposed to be this bad. Yeah. We're pushing our limits, and everybody's up against the wall right now. And, but we're going to push it. We're going to see how far we can go and what we can take. And we're still going to do this. We're going to figure it out, and we're still going to do it. And we did it, and everybody walked out laughing and fun when it was over. Everybody was tired, whatever. But, yeah, they don't show that in the commercials, man. They don't show that sexy shit in the movies. It's all like 10, 15 seconds of glory and getting to do cool shit. And it's like, oh yeah, that's what I joined for. Not this. So, but now I'm sitting here, I'm having some late night tea, talking to Melon.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a great conversation and share some other good stuff. So, I mean, it passed, made it through.
Mate, do the things that no one else is willing to do. Do that. Do that in areas in your life, and just watch the results. Do it with your profession. Do it with your diet and your fitness. Do it with your relationships. Do it with your family. Do the things that no one else is willing to do, and just see where you are. See where you can get to.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I also love that, like, military people. I know a lot of first responders will get it as well. Like, shared suffering with humor equals like friendships that last a lifetime.
Oh yeah. Yeah. speaking of which, we're talking about tough times. I was putting my place together all this evening and trying to reorganize my place and kind of make it different, make it feel like home after since what, April I moved into here. So it's been a while and I'm still trying to get my stuff together. But I was digging through some things and I found a poem that my mother wrote to me, and it was attached to one of the pictures that we have, and we're both in little Canadian tuxedos, which is jean jacket top, jean jacket bottom, but it was a nice little mother son picture. And I just really want to read this real quick. And if some of you are like, oh, Mike, reading a poem from his mother, whatever. Number one, you don't know my mother, and she would beat your ass if you make fun of me. and two, if you don't take time to love your mother, man, you better fix yourself, because no matter how big and bad anybody thinks that I am or how old I get, my mom is always going to be such a wonderful person in my life, and it's unconditional love. I wouldn't be who I am without her today. And I just love her more than anything, really. I mean, she's just a wonderful woman. So
so nice to hear you say that, mate. So nice to hear. Anyone complaining about Mike talking about his mum, go and call your mum.
Oh yeah. Go
and call her and tell her you love her.
Yeah,
you got to be a piece of work. You got to be a piece of work if you're getting upset about hearing someone talking about their mum positively.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What was her poem, man? So I'm loving this. So it was like it was hidden behind like a photo that you had, and you didn't know it was there, and you found it.
Yeah, she gave this to me, a while ago when I moved in. She came down to help a few months ago, and she brought some pictures down, and she slipped this into there, and I just found it. So it's kind of nice. I read it this evening, but it sounded like she was kind of going through a hard time as well. I was a year and a half old. This is written June 10th, 1989. So almost just over 35 years ago. Or I'm sorry, 34 years ago, I think. Yeah. And it was a Saturday. So my mom was going through something, but she was spending time with me. And this kind of is going to go into our topic, I think, about just talking about things will pass or going through something. But if you live in the present, that there's some really nice things that we can go through. So here you go. Melon hasn't heard this, by the way. I haven't read this to anybody, so this is the first time. When I took you to the park today, I was feeling really down. But as you usually do, in just a few minutes, you turned me all around. You have your own way of doing that, and at any given time. Is it any wonder, my little man, why I'm lucky that you're mine? It was amazing at the park today how my mind became so at ease, just riding the swings together, feeling close and feeling the breeze. And although we were saying nothing, you said so much with your eyes. I saw you say, I love you, Mom, as you stared into the sky. We walked along, just you and me, and you wanted to take my hand, and this feeling shot right through me that only a mother can understand. I love to watch you wonder over everything you see, but what makes it all so special is you're wondering with me. It felt so good to lose all track of time for the time that we were there, for some of the best feelings I've ever felt happened to me there. And I hope as we both get older, there will be many more times like these, when we can spend the time together just doing whatever we please. And if ever I'm heading for senile, promise me just one thing. Don't let me forget times that I'll want to remember. Push your old mom on a swing. Love, Mum.
Oh my God.
How about that one, huh? Freaking, that's my mom right there.
Oh man, right in the feels.
Yeah. Yeah, whatever. I'm going to talk to her about it, because I didn't know she slipped that in there, but she was obviously feeling something that day and worried. But she's kind of stopped and was very present with me, and she was able to see that life was great. And I guess, I don't know, I guess it was a nice kid, but something there that really sparked her, and for her to sit down and write this at the park while she was with me, and then she was just watching me on a swing, really shows you that no matter what's going on in your life, that you could really look around and find something beautiful, find something positive to hold on to, and realize that, as she wrote here in the end, like when she's getting to be old and senile, that maybe I could push her on a swing or things change. Um, so yeah, it's
Yeah.
very beautiful, man. I'm gonna frame this. I'm always gonna keep this the rest of my life. I just wanted to share
Wow.
that. That's a little bit of my mom, and I think it's important to pass some of that on.
Wow, mate. And so you've not seen that until just recently. Your
Yeah,
mum's been holding on to that all these years.
yeah, she kept it, and yeah, June 10th, 1989. Crazy.
Man, that's so nice.
Yeah.
Man, that was like that sounded like it should be published.
I'll see if she wants to, man. I don't know, but I mean, that's I teared up reading it. I was like, wow, this is my mom. This is how my mom looked at me and how she feels about me, and there's no mistaking uh unconditional love. It's exactly that, what she wrote about. So yeah, I love my mom. Love my mom. Not ashamed of it at all.
Shout out to Mike's mum.
So
Everybody out there, go call your mum when we're done here.
yeah, you
Tell her you
freaking
love
better.
her.
You freaking better after,
Yeah,
man. And if
that's
you
right.
don't, God help you.
You wouldn't even know 1% of the things your mum's done for you. Oh, that's so nice, mate. That there's, I'm just picturing this in the back of like a photo, that's been there all those years or something like that. You come across so nice.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
this is really what we wanted to talk about. Like talking there, as you just said, things will pass, everything will pass, but if you're present, like your mum was 100% present that day, the moments will stay with you.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's Mel and I were talking yesterday. We called and we talked about a few things, and um so some really big thing for me happened about 2 weeks ago. I finally received a phone call that I was waiting for 3 years, struggling. It was from a past relationship that I had, and I finally got a phone call, and it turned out to be way better than I thought. And it was just no expectations, but it was just a point of finding peace and forgiveness, and and I did, and it just kind of put me on this path the last couple of weeks. I just feel like a whole new person, like I'm complete again, like I have something giving back. I'm confident,
Mm,
and it's just very nice. And I was waiting for so long for that to pass that I held on to it, and it was just like lingering, like dragging an anchor or something like that. And all I wanted it was to be gone.
yeah,
And we talk about this stuff like everything will pass, this too shall pass. And well, it's like, well, when? Like, is there a timeline?
yeah,
Because I would like for it to pass now because it sucks, you know. But on the flip side, when really good things happen, we never want them to end, right? Whether it's a relationship or an experience, or maybe just a single day of happiness and joy and celebration. It's like, wait, we never want this to end. But as Melon and I were talking about it today, and we don't mean to be morbid. We're not looking at it as that way. We're looking at it as a positive. Um,
mm,
Everything is going to end. Everything. And that's just the way life is. Whether it's, house, money, material things, they'll all get old, fall apart, slip away, blow away. Like it doesn't matter. It will end. If it's a relationship, I hope, if you're listening, that you found the love of your life, that you have wonderful children, and you're living the life that you always dreamed of, but ultimately one day it will end, like people will move out,
mm.
people will pass on. It's all going to happen. And when people bring it up and they talk about it, people are like, nope, don't talk about it. I never want to think about that. I understand. It's scary because it's like, man, no one ever wants to lose something. But you got to look at it from
Mm,
the other way, and it's a lesson that we learned from reading like Greek history and about Greek gods. Is the Greek gods hated the Greeks because, one, they were mortal, and they realized that they could die. They realized that everything would be lost at some point because of that, and they loved harder. They had better
mm,
relationships. They appreciated things more. Where the gods were immortal, and no matter what they did, they would always be there the next day. And they hated things. They didn't take pride in things. They abused things, all the time, and they had no respect for anything. They didn't love each other. They couldn't love man. They couldn't do anything. But it just teaches us a lesson that, everything will end at some point, whether it's good, whether it's bad, and being able to find peace within that and just know, it's all an experience. It's all not a victory. It's not a punishment or a failure. It's all just an experience that we all need to like move through, like feel what it's offering to us. You might laugh, you might cry. It's all good. But it's not going to last forever. And
Yeah.
that's the whole journey. We hear this journey of life, enjoy life. Like it's a journey. It's a marathon. It's not a race, kind of thing. And, the older I get, man, with the experience that I have and how things are working out and just weirdly, that I have no control of, I'm really starting to believe a lot of that. There's so many things being given to us that, I've said it before, like the good things are good, the bad things are good. And I truly believe that because they're all lessons. They're all lessons, So that's kind of where we're going with all this. To open up the topic and go, shift it over to Melon. What do you got for the opening of this?
Yeah, I've been reading, a lot of stuff and talking about it, and I think they came across it was a hospital chaplain who has been working in hospitals and has been there for the passing of hundreds, maybe thousands of people at the end of their days. And some of the insights in there around people in their last days, his insight was that there's two deaths. There's a person actually passing and their life is ending. But then there's also the life that they really wish that they'd lived.
Mm.
And that's the real tragedy in a lot of the time when people are passing. And it's to find the lesson and take from that this journey we're on, this path that we're on, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's an arc, as you were saying there, like the Greek philosophers had that awareness of mortality that drove the Greek heroes to achieve greatness, and the gods had eternity, and then they were fickle and arguing and lying and cheating and all of that sort of stuff. But the mortals who had a finite time had to get on and seize the day. All of that stuff that's so fundamental for the way we live. And the insights from this chaplain were around people in their last days having regret for never having lived the life that they could have lived, for never having found their way to really being their authentic self. That, if you're living the life due to outside pressures, family or culture or friends. I mean, it could even be that you're living your life for people you don't even know or don't care about. It could be a social media type, having a facade or a life you're trying to live, rather than finding what you really care about and what you really value. And that at the end of times, the second insight that this chaplain had was people saying, what was I so afraid of? All the people that I lived for are dead now too. And if you can have this awareness without a morbid negative influence, as you said in the beginning, Mike, that you've got a limited amount of time, and if you can find your way to the best you, not like some selfish, low values type person. We're talking about finding your way to the highest and best you, the person that you could be if you really set your mind to it, and doing all the things that are going to lead to that. That you're not going to have, you're going to achieve amazing things, and your life is going to have been an adventure, because we've all only got a finite period of time. So why not have a life that is an adventure? Why not have a life that has an arc where you're the hero, and that you've taken risks and really focusing in on all those areas of life that are important, your health and your career and your family and your relationships and your spiritual development and all of those things, working to unpack issues you had in the past, like you've just said, you had this amazing completion conversation, Mike.
Yes.
And the thing about a completion conversation is that at the end of it, as you said, you felt complete. You had closure on something that was not closure. You got back into a state of being whole and complete. The word integrity means that, like sort of whole integrity in a ship or a submarine. That's got the same meaning as integrity when we talk about, being your word and so on. And when you're in those periods where you've got suffering in your life, like you've got a relationship that there's pain and suffering associated with, or there's regret, the pain will linger until you're ready to have that closure. Like if that thing is still burning, you've got a lesson you haven't taken out of it yet. You haven't extracted the thing that life is trying to teach you. And when you have, you'll be in a state where you're able to complete and close that and heal it. So there's some of the insights I've had around just these amazing insights that people are able to have in palliative care, where they're dealing with people in their last days. And there's lessons that you can apply in your life that are not morbid, but they have you seize the day and take the moment and, do stuff like call your mum and tell her you love her. And the doing of that is going to transform your life. It's going to transform your experience of being you. And, there's a great Bowie quote that I'm going to butcher a little bit from David Bowie saying, aging is an extraordinary process where you become the person you always could have been. And it's like if you stay in the moment, you stay focused, and you're finding the lessons, and you can be giving up scripts and other people's pressures and to live a different life or be a certain way and find yourself, that you can really achieve something and have an experience and make a difference and contribute to other people where you're here.
I think it's, in another way too, we get into living a purpose-driven life. And I think that really, when you explore that, there's a lot of things in there that help define what's important and what our real purpose is. It's not sitting around and worrying about what you can't control, which we all do. We all have done. I have clearly done many times. But it's getting into the things. Again, we speak on this a lot, is what you can and cannot control, but also what really matters, where your time and your energy should go to. And that's going into your character. It's going into development of yourself, of your family, of your friends, of your circle. But also too, it's like your legacy. Like, what are you going to leave behind that you're going to be known for, or somebody's going to take, it's like taking a seed off of the tree and carrying it on and planting it somewhere else for it to thrive and for other people to feed off of it. I mean, that's ultimately what we're supposed to be doing in all aspects of life. If you read it, I mean, it's in the Bible, it's in a few other books, but it just talks about a purpose-driven life, and that everything's going to end. One day we're all going to get old and we can't do what we want to do anymore. And that was something that, like, Melon and I were talking about. It's like, I can't do my job for the rest of my life as much as I wanted to. I can't be this special operations soldier. My body's going to get broken. I mean, I'm already half broken. I'm 35 years old. So I can't do it like as long as I'd like, or, force myself to. Melon can't be a pilot the rest of his life. His eyes are going to go bad. I mean, he's going to probably lose his hair, and they're not going to allow him to fly just on looks alone, because there's a standard within pilots, in aviation. So they're going to be like, hey, look, dude, you're just too bald, too ugly now. We're not letting you put on a uniform. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. Right. So it's kind of crazy to hear sometimes. I was listening to this guy, his name is Ryan Shazier, and I've met him quite a few times. He was a Pittsburgh Steelers football player, American football gridiron linebacker. And in 2017, he was an all-Pro Bowl player, phenomenal player, just all over the field. And he tackled a guy and led with his helmet, and it compressed his spine, and he was paralyzed. and he had to relearn how to walk. He'd never play football again, like all these different things. And he wrote out a quote. He said, one day you're at the top of your game. Life couldn't be better. You're never been in better physical shape. You're only a couple games away from signing a contract of the most money in your life, which would set up your hopes and dreams and all these other things that are in the future. And then one tackle later that you had, you weren't planning on, changes your whole life, and everything's gone. You're no longer playing in front of 10 million people. You're not getting paid. You're not talked to or looked at the same way. And now you're just on a streak going, now what do I do? It's all over. As harsh as that is, I don't wish that on anybody, an injury. But if you really think about it and take a step back, everything is going to end at some point. And for me personally, I always like to say to my guys when I'm talking about their career or anything else and setting up for when something's over, is it's going to end one of two ways: the way you want it to and your expectations and the way you see it in unfolding. And then there's the way life has it unfold, which could sometimes be complete opposite, right? And what was the quote you said, Melon, about the last flight?
Yeah. So I had an instructor back in the day when I was training to fly Hornets F-18s in Australia, and I had an instructor, Hosco, who, this is an aside, did a US Navy exchange and flew on carriers and so on. We don't have aircraft carriers in Australia, so it's very unusual to find a guys had that qualification. And Hosco, we had a Friday down at the bar, sort of clinking beers together, and he was like, "Here's to another week having flown," and we were sort of having a bit of laugh. He was like, "No, but seriously, like all of us are going to have a last flight. There's going to be a last time we strap in to an aircraft, and the lucky ones know when that last time was happening." And I was really like, man, there's a lot in that for life, right? Like, he's talking about guys maybe losing a medical category or having something happen where they can't fly again. He's also talking about people crashing or dying in that last flight. There's a lot of stuff, right? And that the lucky ones go out there and know, this is my last one. But all of us are going to have a last, whatever it is. As you're saying, like, there's going to be a last game of football. There's going to be a last time you're going to get to pick your kids up. There's going to be a last everything. And when you're in the moment and you've been extracting the joy and all of those with it, you're not going to have the regret later that you missed something. And there's going to be always those cards you get dealt, that whole playing the cards you get versus the cards you wanted.
Oh, yeah.
that when that flop happens and life happens and you're sitting there thinking, man, I didn't want this. I wanted the 4 aces. It's like, well, no, you got the what you got. And now what are you going to do?
Yeah, that's pretty powerful. I love that story of Hosco saying, the lucky ones will know when it's their last time. I mean, imagine if you knew in your life, if there was a narrator, say, and every time it was your last time having something so important that the narrator voice, which I'm pretty sure it would be either Samuel L. Jackson or Morgan Freeman. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's God, or like they're always the narrators in people's heads or something.
Samuel L. Jackson's the R-rated version of Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, exactly. But imagine if you were told every single time, like, hey, you might want to pay attention a little bit more, or you might want to love this person a little more, or have that conversation, because this is the last time you're going to see them. This is the last time you're going to have.
Yeah.
This is the last time, whatever. I mean, imagine if that was the case. What would you say? How would you act? What conversations would you have? What would you change in your life? Right? Pretty powerful to think about, and it's like, man, that changes everything. It changes my way of thinking, my sense of time, my sense of love, appreciation, a lot of that. But unfortunately, that's not the case. Or is it? Or is that a blessing? Is that a good thing? Man, you could go back and forth, but honestly, I think not knowing makes you appreciate things even more, because I don't know what the future holds. I don't have control over anything except how I react to what happens, right?
Mm.
None of us want to get the phone call at 3 a.m. and you get the worst news of your life. But when you wake up, are you going to be filled with regret, or are you going to go, man, I'm so glad that I said what I said. I'm so glad I took that day off and spent the time with them because of this. I'm so glad that I took that vacation. I'm so glad that I did something. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
There's a big
So
difference there.
And there's another part of that, like when you're saying there, we don't have the voice of Samuel L. Jackson or Morgan Freeman in the family version. In life, like there's no one ringing a bell saying this is an important moment. There's no one ringing a bell. There's no one ringing a bell for you and your training in a time when you got an opportunity to train. And same for me with pilot training and you with all the stuff you do, to say this is the important thing, and you need to learn this lesson that's coming to you right now. And maybe years later, you're going to cash in on a couple of years worth of experience and knowledge and capability that you were either there in the moment and you were taking all the lessons, and then you get the engine failure in the aircraft and you cash in a second, like Captain Sullenberg with the Miracle on the Hudson, with all his whole lifetime of experience. He cashed in when he got the double engine out and he managed to ditch into the Hudson. No one's ringing a bell saying, pay attention in this course, pay attention in this day of training, pay attention when this person's talking, or go read this book. And these moments come, and the opportunity to take the lesson out of them is either taken advantage of or missed. And do you know what I mean? It's the same thing where you're saying, like, we're going to have a last conversation with our parents. We're going to have a last conversation with all the people that we know, because either we're going to pass or they're going to pass. Life will occur. There's no bell ringing in these key moments. But like you've been saying there, if you're in the moment, like, your mum in the park with you that day, June 10, 1989, you're not going to have the regret of having missed it when the important time comes. And it's just these lessons from the chaplain in the hospital dealing with palliative care, lessons from all of us in these critical roles, military, first responders, aircrew, etc. Conversations with family. Like, if you've been in the moment all the time, you've got the best chance to then be able to play the cards that you get dealt by life, or when we come to the end of our life, to not have regret there. And we have a chance to become the person we always could have been. And if you're in the moment and you're doing it, and like, we're not saying you're always on, you're also having those recreation, like the recreation is recreation. You're having those times to downtime to chill and watch a movie and sit and drink a cup of coffee and look at the river or whatever it is. Like, those are key moments too. You're not always hustling. But like, what a blessing to be able to be in your final days and to look back with satisfaction on your life.
Dr. Jordan Peterson, that I listen to him a lot, Melon, as well. Yeah. He says a quote here: can you imagine yourself in 10 years if, instead of avoiding the things you should do, you actually did them every single day? That's powerful. Right? And that's exactly what we're talking about there. Is we're living in fear, we're avoidant, that we think we have time. I'll get around to it later. Oh, that's not right now. I can do that whenever I want. And man, we live a life like that. And again, look, I try to think that way. Do I always? No. I'm human, right? I have emotions, I have feelings, stress, everything else, and I try to prioritize the best I can and try to live a good life. But do I always hit the mark? No, I do not. I will be the first to tell you. Yeah. Everybody. We're all fouled, right? And but it's the people that are trying. It's the people that I love surrounding myself around. They can acknowledge it, but they're like, yeah, but look, that there's still a bright side to this, and there's work to be done, not just give up or fail or anything. So I think about that and about what Peterson said, and it does make things more meaningful. And the best thing that comes to mind is 2 years ago when my grandmother passed on Halloween morning. But 6 months prior, I was away for training, and I wasn't home, but my uncle passed away suddenly. And I went and I drove all the way back home, and I stopped at my grandmother's favorite pizza place. She loved pizza, and I got a pizza and a little puzzle. I think it was like a 300 piece puzzle or whatever. And I sat there that night. I stayed over at her house, and we sat at the table, and we had her favorite pizza, and we built a puzzle together, and we talked about life. And that was the most in-depth discussion I've ever had with my grandmother. Never talked about the things that we talked about in my entire life, but it just felt like the right moment. It felt like the right time and everything else. And that's when she shared with me, some of the things, the best things in life aren't things, and, what was most important to her in her life. And again, she was 84. So kind of what Melon was saying about you're getting to the end of your life, and there's regret, there's thankfulness, gratefulness for what you did have, and a perception that we can't, as younger people, can't see or feel yet because we feel like we have time. Like I'm 35. People tell me, "Oh, you're a baby. You still have so much time left." And yeah, I believe I do. Hopefully. But it's not till you're in that moment where someone has a sickness, or they're very old, or they're laying in a hospital bed, or something just absolutely terrible happened to them where they have to face it immediately. It's like this ugly monster in front of you, and there's no choice anymore. I will never regret having that time at the table with pizza and a puzzle and an amazing conversation with my grandmother. If I could have the choice to go back and redo it, I wouldn't. I knew that I hit the mark, and I said what I needed to say, and she said some amazing things that she passed on to me that I'll never forget. And I'm grateful, and I have peace with it. So when I found out the morning, I was up on the Appalachian Trail, actually up on the mountaintop, and I didn't have reception. That morning, I climbed down after 2 days, got reception, and I received a phone call that my grandmother passed away. I sat up there on the side of the hill watching the sun come up, and I just talked to her. And I said, "Thank you, Graham, for everything. Thank you for the talk that we had, and I'll miss you, and I'll love you, and everything else." But I wasn't extremely sad. I felt peaceful about it because of the experience I got to have. And I was very intentional with my time with her, knowing that I didn't think it was going to be that much longer, So yeah, that's a wonderful, beautiful example that comes to my mind about doing what you should do and not taking anything for granted, especially your time.
Right. I remember you telling me about, I don't think I knew about the pizza puzzle and life evening with Graham, but that's a beautiful thought, to picture a grandson with his grandmother doing a puzzle and sharing her favorite meal. He doesn't love pizza, and talking about life. But I do remember you talking about being up on the mountaintop and coming down and getting that message. And then you then took the time to reflect, and like life is big moments, and then there's the grind, the day to day that can occur, and it occurs to everyone, like you're saying, all of us. But then these key moments you can put in with intention. You can stop and buy the 300 piece jigsaw puzzle, and you can buy a pizza. Or you can make that phone call or send that message to someone when you think of them, in the moment when you think of them. You just take that 10 seconds to record a little voice memo and send it off. and have that touch point and keep that relationship, build on that relationship. Right. I was talking with Michael, we're sort of talking about a lot of stuff here, playing the cards you get versus the cards you wanted, the importance of being in the moment, and that there's no one ringing a bell saying this is important right now. But there's Stephen Covey has some really awesome insights, and I highly recommend people get into his work. Just an amazing, amazing thought leader. One of his key ones we've talked about before is the circle of influence and the circle of concern. And the circle of concern is a big circle. It's like a donut. There's a small circle inside the big one. And the big circle is circle of concern. And that's all the things that concern your life, all the things that are going to impact you, from weather to taxes to socioeconomic, recessions and everything in your life, your health, everything. And inside that circle of concern is your circle of influence, and they're the things you can change, the things you can make a difference on. And the outside circle is a set size, and it's the circle of influence that's either going to grow or shrink, and it's going to grow or shrink based on where your attention is. If your attention is in the circle of concern, you're moaning about your boss, or you're complaining about your parents, or whatever it is, your circle of influence will shrink. And if you're concentrating on your relationships, and you're eating well, and you're exercising, and you're doing your preparation for your mission, you're doing your study for your flight, you're doing whatever it is that's important in your life, that circle of influence will grow, and you'll be able to impact your life. You're the person who's whinging and moaning at work. People don't listen to you, and you're not going to have a voice with your boss. You're not going to have a voice with your peers or your subordinates. You're the person who's quiet and takes on the task and gets on with it. When you speak, on those rare occasions that you speak, people are going to listen to you, and you're going to have an impact because you've got credibility, and you've got a proven track record behind you. Anyway, this circle of concern influence thing, I was talking to Michael about it, and there's a lot of stuff that we've sort of been talking about, like Mike doing the hard work and the preparation for years, or me, the same thing in the aviation sphere of gaining skills and knowledge quietly over many years, and then having to cash in that experience and knowledge in a moment that's critical, with the engine fail, for example. I was talking to Michael about this, my son Michael, who's now 14, about this idea of circle of influence and circle of concern. And it was to do with my daughter when she was born 16 years ago. 16, nearly 17. Can you believe it, Mike? In January will be 17 years. So she was a super prem baby. She was delivered on the first day of the 23rd week. So she was 17 weeks early. And my wife Cherry's waters broke on the first day of the 22nd week, and we didn't know what was going on. It was our first baby. And I turned up to the hospital in my flying suit, direct from work. And the doctors came and told us that this was a non-viable pregnancy, and that Cherry was going to go into labour, and the baby would be delivered within normally a couple of hours. And where we were in the 22nd week, it's just not viable. But he really laid it out. He told me all about the condition of the lungs and the condition of all the organs and the skin and all the reasons why. And it's probably the most horrendous conversation I've ever had to endure. I've had some pretty bad ones. And he laid all this out so that typically fathers in these situations are like on the end of a spectrum of survival at all costs. And mothers tend to be on the end of the spectrum, no suffering for my baby. And these are like opposites. So he was really laying it out so that I wouldn't argue and end up in a situation where this little baby was going to then have basically no chance of surviving, but have, 5 days of pain or before passing, which does happen. So this doctor really laid it out. It was pretty horrendous, and they brought in a form for me to sign saying consent to not resuscitate. And I then went home, and it was 7 days where Cherry was in the hospital in the high risk maternity ward. And I'd stay in there sort of as long as I could every day. And there was certain visiting hours, and I'd come in early and hide, and stay in there late and hide, and turn the lights off, and, you know, put chairs together and sleep on them. Because I had the sense that this time was super important, and the labour could come at any moment, and I wanted to be there. And Cherry amazingly made it through 7 days. Just an extraordinary example of spirit, mind, and body. You know, that your spiritual state goes first, and then your emotional and mental, and then body will follow. But anyway, the big matron would come around every night in the dark, and she'd find me in there. She'd go off about a man being in the maternity ward late at night and so on, and I'd have to go home, you know, like midnight or 2 a.m. or whatever, and get online and read. And this is the circle of influence part. I spent a couple of hours every night, and in this 7 days, I didn't know that I'd have 7 days, because no one rings a bell and no one tells you. In this 7 days, I read this huge report that had just been done into prematurity in all the aspects, the ethics, legal, medical costs, disability, likely outcomes. 276-page report called the Nuffield Report. And I read this. I'd come home at 2 a.m. and read for a couple of hours and crash on the couch, and then get up and go in the car and drive back to the hospital again in the morning. And in this 7-day window, I read this whole report, and I understood that there was a threshold that you cross as you come into the 23rd week, where you're in with a chance, a very small chance, but the baby could possibly be viable. It's a grey area from the 23rd to 25th week, and then past the 25th week, your chances really improve. Anyway, I was counting down the days, and I knew that this date was coming for the 23rd week. And on the first day of the 23rd week, Annie, my wife Cherry, actually did go into labour. And on the night, you know, it's about 2 a.m. We're in the hospital, and I'm in the, you know, they've called me and I've come in. It was all a dark room, the lights were dim, and it's all very quiet, and midwife's there and the gynecologist, and, you know, holding hands, and, you know, full of fear and trepidation and so on. And just looking at thinking, everything's pretty chill in here, you know. And at one point I said to the doctor, "Where's the neonatal unit?" And the doctor came to me and looked at me, and I just saw this look of, you know, sort of anger come across his face. He's like, "What do you mean? You've agreed not to resuscitate?" And I realized in a moment where we were, what was happening. And I was like, but that was in the 22nd week, and we're now in the 23rd week. And they've never come back and asked us again. But I thought we're now in the 23rd week, we're in with a chance. And this doctor had been told, no, this family's agreed not to resuscitate. So they were preparing just for a non-viable delivery. And I knew I had like the labours, we're in labour. And I just said to him, I've read the Nuffield Report. I understand survival at all costs and no suffering as a spectrum. And I'm in the middle, and I'll be guided by you. But I want to have it, if there's a chance, I want there to be a chance. And he just ran out of the room. When I didn't know, he went down to the neonatal unit, he grabbed the neonatal specialist and pulled him out in the middle of his shift, and they didn't know this was happening, and they were all furious with me because they thought I was changing my mind. It was actually just the procedure had, you know, I wrote a letter to them, and they changed the procedure to come back and revisit when they hit milestones so the families could update their decision. And this German neonatal doctor came in and was like, what are you doing? Like, why are you changing mine? I said, Nuffield Report, survival at all costs, no suffering. I'm in the middle, be guided by you. I understand the risks, but I want there to be a chance. And he said, all right, if there's a heartbeat, we'll resuscitate. And I said, okay. He ran out of the room, and then came in with another nurse, and they literally put the neonatal unit together in the room while Cherry was in full labour. It's a long story, but
dude, wow. I mean, you told me the story before we hit the record button, but hiding in the dark in the neonatal unit, like maternity ward, like, you can't be in here. Like, I've never heard of somebody hiding away in the hospital or whatever just to be there. But I mean, your reasoning is perfectly normal. I mean, you didn't want to be there to miss something terrible that you knew could happen, and you were making the very clear decision that I'm going to be here for Cheza. I'm going to be here for whatever happens to Annie, no question.
Yeah.
Because when you were talking about it, I was like, man, what if he wasn't there and something happens? Like, who would Melon be today? Like, how would he look at things the way he did? You would be full with regret probably the rest of your life if you knew that you could be there like you were, and you just for whatever reason chose not to be. Like, man, I mean, that would be so heavy to carry. And I think that's, that doctor that was talking about being around the people that are on their last leg, or, laying in their deathbed, and they're just going through their life, listing out the regrets, and he's bearing witness to it, just hearing all these incredible stories of, I wish I should have, I could have, this would have been better if, and, he's sitting there taking it on board. I mean, it's a curse and it's a gift, I think, at the same time. But
it's a curse and it's a gift.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, if we're not taking the time to look at those things and acknowledge them for what they are, and trying to really do the best thing, like Melon said, and that quote said was, stop worrying about what other people are influencing you to do or whatever, because at the end of the day, you're going to live with it, not them.
Yeah.
They're going to be gone. They're going to pass away too, And on a lighter note, it reminds me of the movie Grumpy Your Old Men, where the guy goes out and he's like, what do you eat for breakfast? He's like, bacon. He's like, what do you eat for lunch? Bacon. And then he's like, how about for dinner? He's like, 2 pounds of bacon and a cigarette every day for 70 years. And those damn doctors keep telling me to stop eating it, and they just keep on dying, and he's still there enjoying his bacon. Like, it's funny as hell. It's a great movie if you haven't seen it, but it's true. It's like, man, live your life. What you're going to regret. What you're not going to regret. What's most important to you, and everything else. I mean, as hard as that sounds, I mean, dude, I worried about for a long time in a period of my life what other people thought, what I should be, who I should be, how I should look. And it really cost me on some big decisions that, I may or may not regret now, because I was worried about what other people thought, when little did I think about they're going through their own problems. They're going through their own dilemmas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, dude, one's enough.
There's an age you reach. I think there's an age you reach. I think it's really clear that people at the end of their days have reached this point where you realize, when you're young, you're like, oh, what does everyone else think? And I need to wear these clothes and do these things. And then there's a point where you're like, oh, I need to start living for myself. And then there's a point when you realize no one ever gave a shit about you anyway. They were all wrapped up in their own stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Just to tidy off that story, like it was a happy ending. My daughter lived, and we had an amazing outcome. But it was no bell ringing saying, read this Nuffield report. This is the key thing you need to be doing now. That this gave me a circle of influence with the doctors. I had the words, I had the concepts. I could communicate in like a 10-second burst, because that's all I had. And they understood they didn't have to stand there arguing with me. They were like, he understands, and they could go and do their job. I'm just saying that critical moments come and critical moments go, and you don't know which ones are which. Is this the mundane? Is this not? But if you're present and you're in the moment, you can do the thing you need to do. And you can build that circle of influence that you might need later.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You will need it later. Let's just put it that way. You will need it later, because life is not to be done by yourself. It's done to be with relationships and other people, and experience things together, and be able to lean on people in the worst times, and celebrate when there's good times. And again, those are things that you're not going to regret, on either side of the coin. So yeah, man, I think it's great. I think it's time maybe to wrap it up. What do you think, Melon?
Yeah, mate. I'm just left with this image of you and your mum in the park. in June 10, 1989. And, you know,
Yeah, I can't
so
help it.
like that's the key. That's the key, you know, play the cards you get versus the cards you wanted. And there's going to be hard times for all of us. Like, and all of us are going to make mistakes, and all of us are going to be influenced by, you know, thoughts about what people around us, pressures, all that stuff, because we're human. But the lucky ones find these moments and find these ways to be in the moment, even when things are going badly, and find the way to play the cards that you get. And, you know, we all wish we had the four aces or the full house, or whatever, but you're going to get what you get. And all of us are going to get bad cards at times.
Yeah. I'll just close with two things. One, if I got the four aces every single time, I wouldn't be who I am today. And like I said before, man, I've got to a point in my life where I truly love myself for who I am and what I'm doing and the effects I have in my relationships and stuff. So I don't want the four aces as great as it sounds. No, thank you. I'll take the good and the bad. And the second part that I want to offer is just my challenge with this. You know, I'm sitting here listening to Melon talk and these quotes and reading this letter that I just opened up tonight in a poem from my mom from 34 years ago. What is one thing that you're putting off? What one thing emotionally, professionally, physically, and spiritually? Go through each of those four things and really think about what are you putting off, thinking that there's more time, that you can do it tomorrow. I can do that next year. You know, I can do whatever, because, you know, I write these down, and emotionally, I wish I would share something with someone and let them know truly how much I love them before it's too late. Professionally, maybe I should go for that dream job, that I should go for the next level, that I should get that degree, that I should get something that I need to just go for it. Physically, man, maybe I've always wanted to do a marathon, right? Or do a swim, because God forbid something happens to you and you can't walk anymore. You know, you can't run anymore. You can't, you just can't do it anymore. Or spiritually, man, it's something eating you up so bad inside and you're just yearning to have something cleaned from your soul. Go do it.
Yeah.
Go do it, because that could be the worst thing. All other things could be great. Your emotions, professional, physically, that can be great. But if your spirit's hurting, man, all of those are going to hurt. Don't waste time. Find your peace, get your closure, you know, whatever it is, man, because I'm speaking from experience with all four of these, like many people out there can do, and a lot way worse than I. But it's something that it's a starting point. What's one thing for each of those that you're waiting on or sitting on that you shouldn't, and you know you shouldn't? Write it down, figure out an action plan, just go do it. Even if you fail, go do it. You don't want any regrets. That's all I got.
I'm sure, like, just to reinforce what Mike's saying, I'm sure there's a conversation that all of us could have. You know, there's one person we can call. We can tell people we love them. We can clean up something from the past. And like, that's that power you have in your hands. You could do it. You could do it quickly. It doesn't have to be a 2-hour conversation. It can be a little power connection. And at least, if she's still around, call your mum and tell her you love her. That's my challenge.
Yeah. All right. There's 5 things. Number 1, call your mother, and then do the other 4, and then do the other 4.
Yeah.
God help you.
Yeah. And if she's passed, you know, just take a moment and think about a moment like, you know, Chris was able to think of that day in the park, you know, and have a conversation in your mind if your mum's passed. But if she's around, dial the number and let her know you love her. All right, Mike. Thanks for another amazing conversation, mate. Thanks for staying up so late in the middle of an unbelievable training regime. I mean, he shares with, just for the listeners, he shares with me what he does, and I just can't believe it. And here we are, freaking late at night. He stayed up for this. So I really appreciate you, mate. And stay safe in your training. And for everyone else out there, wow, let us know how you anything you've taken out of this conversation, any recent ones, any topics you'd like us to cover, subscribe, like, and share this out into your network. Take care.